without further ado, what I would like to do is introduce today's Master of Ceremonies, Miss Elizabeth Vanderbrook, who will lead the program.
Good afternoon. At this time, I would like to ask all who are able to stand, gentlemen, remove your hats, and join Miss Taylor Pepitone in the singing of our national anthem. Celebrate Veterans Day. But what exactly is Veterans Day? Why do we celebrate it on the 11th of November? To help answer these questions, we will watch a video put together by Ms. Clare's class.
We observe Veterans Day on an anniversary, not of a great battle or of the beginning of a war, but of a day when war ended and our nation was again at peace. Ever since the armistice of November the 11th, 1918, this day has been to remember our debt to all who have worn the uniform of the United States. Our veterans have borne the costs of America's wars and have stood watch over America's peace. And today, every veteran can be certain the nation you served and the people you defended are grateful. Today and every day, the prayers of the American people are with those who wear our country's uniform. They serve a great cause, and they follow a great tradition handed down to them by America's veterans. Our veterans from every era are the finest of citizens. We owe them the life we know today. They command the respect of the American people, and they have our lasting gratitude. The military life is built around sacrifice and complete devotion to America. If you have lived that life, then you know the meaning of commitment to a greater cause. In so many ways, the life we live today has been shaped by our veterans. On Veterans Day, we remember the fallen, and we show our respect to those still among us, the veterans we know as our friends, neighbors, relatives, and colleagues. Not every veteran has known the full fury of battle, but most count their time in uniform among the defining experiences of their lives. The military drew out the best that was in them, instilling the highest standards of diligence, discipline, and loyalty. That is a bond joining every veteran from every branch of the service, whether drafted or enlisted, commissioned or non-commissioned. Each took an oath, lived by a code, and stood ready to fight and die for their country. More than a generation has passed since the war ended in Vietnam. Since that time, even since the war in the Persian Gulf, the technology of warfare has become far more complex and sophisticated. Yet our most basic military asset has not changed at all. It is the character, the daring, and the resourcefulness of those who do the fighting. No matter how complicated war might be, it always comes down to the ones who fly the planes, man the ships, and carry the rifles. And our country's military has left a legacy like no other fighting force ever assembled. The uniform they wear and the flag they carry are held in esteem wherever they have served. And that is their finest tribute. Across the world, to people who struggle and suffer, the sight of an American in uniform has meant hope, relief, and deliverance. Veterans Day is set aside to remember every man and woman who has taken up arms to defend our country. We honor every soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, and Coast Guardsman who gave some of the best years of their lives to the service of the United States and stood ready to give life itself on our behalf. 25 million veterans walk among us, and on this day, our nation thanks them all. When history looks back upon the records of our age and our nation centuries from now, I believe it will be written that once there was a great nation of free people who sent their very best young men and women out to serve on the frontiers of freedom in uniform. They went forth to defend their nation and its ideals, giving up the comforts and conveniences of home. They led lives of great consequence, for they kept the torch of liberty burning in the oldest democracy on earth. Each and every one of them were heroes, and gave to every child born thereafter a precious and irreplaceable gift. And their nation remained eternally grateful.
I would now like to welcome back Taylor Pepitone, who will sing Rise Up by Andrew Day. As I call your name, if you are able, we ask that you please stand to be recognized. Audience, I would ask that you please hold your applause until I have finished reading names. Noah Johnson, Army. Lori Fassett, Army, 8 years served. David Gloss, U.S. Air Force, 5 years served. Richard Wadsworth, Navy, 6 years served. John Wadington, Army, 4 years served. Dennis Nelson, Navy, 6 years served. Doug Stork, Army, 2 years served. Jeremy Fassett, Army, 6 years served. Courtney Bauer, Army, 59 to 63. Ivan Padror, Marines, 9 years served. Ken Smiley, Navy, 1983 to 2003. Tony Cavo, Army, 2 years served. Henry Eberhardt, Army, 2 years served. Mark Adsett, Navy, 3 years served. Jeremy Eberhardt, Navy, 28 and a half years served. Marvin Kimber, Navy, 6 years served. Carl Hauser, Air Force, 20 years served. Brent Duffel, Navy, 1985 to 1991. Jim Young, Navy, 1971 to 1974. Oh, Army, sorry. Army. Sorry about that, sir. Okay. Ken Cooper, Army, 2 years served. Dave Lee, Navy, 3 years served. Chris Dickinson, Army, 23 years served. Jim Eberhart, Army, 2 years served. Robert Musser, Army, 3 years served. Ray McCall, Army, 8 years served. Steve Marshall, Air Force, 4 years served. Donna Bow, U.S. Army, 3 years served. Veterans, we thank you for all you have done to allow us to have the freedoms we enjoy today. Can we please have a well-deserved round of applause for these men and women? Of our armed forces with the playing of Salute to America's Finest. Now it is my honor to introduce today's guest speaker, Mr. Carl Hauser. Carl served 20 years on active duty with the U.S. Air Force, with assignments in Panama, Georgia, Germany, Ohio, New York, and South Korea. He has also had several combat deployments, including Operations Desert Shield, Desert Storm in the Middle East, Operation Joint Forge in Bosnia, and Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. He retired from his active duty in 2003 as a Master Sergeant. During most of Mr. Hauser's career, he was a Tactical Air Command and Control Specialist, helping direct USAF airstrikes in support of Army objectives. He was eventually certified as a Joint Terminal Attack Controller. He also served 2 years as a non-prior service recruiter and 3 years as a health professions recruiter, both in Northwest Ohio. After his recruiting tour, he returned to his original specialty, in which he performed until retirement. Mr. Hauser moved to Clare in 2016 and just recently took over as the Director of Clare County Veterans Services. Without further ado, please give a warm CHS welcome to Mr. Carl Hauser.
What is a veteran? A veteran is a fellow citizen, an ordinary person who at one significant point in their lives made a blank check payable to the United States for an amount up to and including their life. A veteran is any man or woman who took the oath of the military and honorably served their country in peacetime or war. Every day is Veterans Day for those of us who work with veterans and those who work for the greater good of our veterans. Their bravery, their resourcefulness, their patriotism mark them as some of America's finest citizens. Americans who stepped out of the crowd and swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Each of the men and women that we honor today uttered that oath, and each served under those words. Some bled and some gave their lives. The decision to serve changed their lives forever. But make no mistake, some veterans bear visible signs of their service: a missing limb, a jagged scar, a look in the eye. Others may carry the evidence inside of them: a pin holding a bone together, a piece of shrapnel in the leg, or some other inner turmoil. You can't always tell a veteran just by looking. He's the cop on the street who spent 6 months in Saudi Arabia, sweating 2 gallons a day, making sure the armored personnel carriers did not run out of fuel. He or she was the nurse who fought against futility and went to sleep sobbing every night for 2 solid years in Da Nang, Vietnam. He's the POW who went away and came back as another person, or didn't come back at all. He's the Paris Island drill instructor who's never seen combat, but has saved countless lives by turning slouchy, no-account rednecks and gang members into Marines, teaching them what it means to watch each other's backs. He's a parade-running legionnaire who pins on his ribbons and medals with a prosthetic hand. He's a career quartermaster who watches the ribbons and medals go by. He's the 3 anonymous heroes who lie in the Tomb of the Unknowns at Arlington. Their memories must always be preserved for all of the anonymous heroes who have died in every war, unrecognized with them on the battlefield or even in the deep ocean. He's an ordinary yet extraordinary human being, a person who offered some of life's most vital years in his service of his country, and who sacrificed his ambition so others would not have to sacrifice theirs. They made the country you live in possible. They brought hope to a world historically plagued by fanatics and hatred and desperate poverty. And they have done this at the risk of their own safety, sanity, and their future, and asking for only one thing in return, or without asking for one thing in return. It's what veterans have done for you. So the question is, what have you done for veterans? Those who served did not serve for glory or power or wealth, but for freedom and the simple recognition that a service well performed and a sincere thank you means more to most veterans than any other reward. Remember, each time you see someone who served our country, be patient with them. You never know what they've been through or what demons they face. Just lean over and say thank you. That's all most people need, and in most cases it will mean more than any other medals they could have been awarded. 2 little words that mean a lot. Thank you. And think about this. It's the soldier, not the reporter, that guarantees freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who protects the right to demonstrate. It's the soldier who salutes the flag, serves beneath the flag, and whose coffin is draped by the flag, and allows the protester to burn the flag. As George Orwell once said, we sleep safe on our beds at night because rough men stand ready in the night to visit violence upon those who would do us harm. Some of you may have noticed, and it was mentioned in the video earlier, that this weekend, this particular Sunday, is a significant anniversary. It's the 100th anniversary of the armistice that ended World War I. Significant because the guns fell silent on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918. And some of you may have wondered why occasionally you'll see veterans out front of Whitbecks or the post office selling artificial poppies and what that means. During the war, during the First World War, near Flanders, Belgium, which is Central Europe, each spring poppies grow all across the country. During the early years of World War I, in the Second Battle of Ypres, and I had to look that pronunciation up, a young Canadian artillery officer, Lieutenant Alexis Helmer, was killed on the 2nd of May, 1915, in a gun position by a German artillery shell. He was serving the same Canadian artillery unit as a friend of his, a Canadian military doctor and artillery commander named Major John Mccrae. As the brigade doctor, John Mccrae was asked to perform the burial service for his friend because the chaplain had been called away on somewhere else for duty that evening. It's believed later that evening that he wrote, after the burial, that he wrote the draft for his famous poem, In Flanders Fields. I'd like to end with that. In Flanders fields, the poppies glow, between the crosses row on row. That mark our place, and in the sky, the larks still bravely singing fly. We are the dead. Short days ago, we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and we now lie in Flanders fields. Take up the quarrel with our foe. To you, from falling hands, we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hauser. I would now like to introduce Senior Caleb Camp and Junior Brecken Court, who will share with us some information about TAPS.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for coming to this celebration in recognition of those who have served our country. My name is Caleb Camp, and I'm the drum major of the marching band and part of the local Boy Scout troop. To begin, I would like to thank all those present and those who could not be here with us today for their service and sacrifice for this nation and the freedoms we enjoy. In these next few minutes, I plan to inform and teach you all about the importance and history of TAPS. I'd like to open by explaining what TAPS is. In the armed forces of our nation, bugle calls have always been important, originally for more of a used for signaling, and now more used as more of a traditional for raising and lowering the flag and the beginning and the end of the day. TAPS is different from most other calls in the sense that it is a very sobering meaning, originating as the close of the day and the lowering of the flag, but more so now of its use in memorial services and funerals. TAPS was not always a call though, and it took more years for it to even get a name. It originated from Civil War General Daniel Adams Butterfield. General Butterfield was a brigadier general in the 3rd Brigade, 5th Army Corps, which included the 83rd Pennsylvania Volunteers. As the legend goes, He was displeased with the formality of the call for lights out at the end of the day and worked with his bugler, Oliver W. Norton, to write a new call. This new call was loosely based off of the call of tattoo, which was at the time used as the signal for lights out in the quarters. Being that taps was transitioned from this call and made from this call, it was then used as the close of the day and the lowering of the flag. Being that taps was made of this call, the original use was more of remembrance of what you've done through the day, and just kind of mellowing out before falling asleep. This call was very well liked by both sides on the war, the Confederate and the Union sides, that it was used all over for the end of the day and the closing and lights out. The first ever use of taps at a funeral was 3 months after the composition of the call and was done by request of Union Captain John Tidball, head of an artillery battery, for the use in one of his fellow cannoneers who was killed in battle. This was requested instead of a 21-gun salute to keep their position hidden from the enemy. The next recorded time this was used in service was for the funeral of Confederate General Stonewall Jackson. This was done about 10 months after the composition. After the war, the call was directly instituted as a call by the whole of the country in 1865. Although it was considered a call, it was not given the name taps until 9 years later in 1874. Despite the fact there are no true commissioned words for taps, they have been changed and adjusted by groups throughout the years. Most popular words used throughout the country by many of the groups are as follows. Day is done, gone the sun, from the lakes, from the hills, from the sky. All is well, safely rest, God is nigh. Fading light dims the sight, a star gems the sky, gleaming bright. From afar, drawing near, falls the night. Thanks and praise for our days, neath the sun, neath the stars, neath the sky. As we go, this we know, God is nigh. In spite of this call only being 24 notes, there is great meaning associated with it, along with the fond and heartfelt memories that come along with hearing and playing this piece. I'd like to make it known that I will be one of those who will be playing taps during the ceremony today. I'd also like to thank those who have served and those who continue to serve to defend the freedoms that we know and love here in the United States of America. The purpose of Veterans Day is to acknowledge those who have served our country and are here with us today. It is equally important, though, that we remember those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in serving their country. At this time, if you would please rise and observe a moment of silence for those who have given their life for our freedoms.
You may be seated. Thank you, Caleb and Brett. At this time, CHS Symphonic Band will conclude our assembly with the playing of Midway March. Students, once the band begins, middle school students will be released first to return to their building. High school students, once the middle school students have cleared the gym, you are dismissed for the day. After the students have exited, I would like to invite all veterans and their families to join the artwork from our art classes and refreshments in the commons area. We would also like for each veteran to grab up to 2 loaves of bread from the bread table. Thank you for being here with us today, and God bless America.